Shalom and welcome. We are
the Hebrew Sisters.
And we are so happy to be with you today and share with you about the new year. There are several new years that happen according to your belief system or according to the country that you live in. So we're going to mention those, but we're really going to talk about the biblical new year. Now, if you're liking some of these videos that you're watching and you're joining with us every week, if you'll give us a thumbs up, we would really appreciate that. You can also see the other teachings that we offer and would love to have you join us. But let's talk about the new year.
So in our society and modern day culture today, there are several new years. And I think if you look biblically, there are a couple that people start to confuse or say, what is this? And what is Rosh Hashanah? What is the first month or Nisan 1? And which is really right? Because in the United States, we celebrate the new year January 1st. And so we see some differences there, but there's a key scripture that's given in Exodus chapter 12 that helps us understand that Adonai set a new year for Israel to follow, and he called it the first month. Later on in scripture, it's mentioned as Nisan 1.
Nisan 1, the biblical new year. And what time of year does that occur?
Nisan 1 occurs in what we know in the United States as spring, or in May, April, March. Sometimes right around in that area right there.
And it makes sense, doesn't it? The earth is awakening. The trees are coming back to life. Everything is in bloom, and it's like there's brand new life because it's a brand new year.
So if you take, speaking of that, if you just take the letters of Nisan, which is March, April month in the Hebrew months, then, and you look at the letters of Nisan, a Nun, a Yod, a Samech, and a Nun Sofit, or a final Nun. You put all of those together in the Paleo Hebrew, what you come up is that you are surrounded by the activity and the spark of life.
Well, there you go.
It is that. So in the spring, think about it. In December, November, December, everything goes to sleep that is in creation. Depending on where you're at, of course. But in the United States, the Western culture, things go to sleep. And they are not in bloom. They are not growing. And so they're laying there very, very quiet. But all of a sudden, things start waking up when the spring equinox starts to happen. And so you see that the trees begin to come awake from a long winter's nap. The grass begins to change color. All of a sudden, the trees are blossoming out and bringing forth some beautiful, beautiful colors, some wonderful fragrances. And now things are coming alive. That's what Adonai set forth for Israel, that when things start to awaken in the land of Israel, you know that it is the first month. But Yana, there's something else that Israel celebrates called Rosh Hashanah. Can you help us understand what is the difference between Rosh Hashanah and Nisan 1?
You bet. Rosh Hashanah. Rosh in Hebrew means the head or the beginning. Ha is the article the. Shana is year. So in the fall, what's called the High Holy Days, there are feasts right there together. Israel came together and said, well, what about those who don't want to live a biblical life? We need to have another calendar. Mm-hmm. So they created what's known as a civil calendar. And in this civil calendar, they decided that along with Yom Kippur and Sukkot, or the Feast of Tabernacles, that this whole season would begin with a civil new year known as the head of the year, or Rosh Hashanah. It's a beautiful time in the year, but in the Bible, it was not called Rosh Hashanah.
That's right.
It was called Yom Teruah. Yom is the day. It means day. Teruah is a sound that we make when we blast the shofar. And so for those who didn't want to live a biblical lifestyle, they just renamed things. Kind of like what happened with the English Bible. They didn't like the town called Beit Lechem, the house of bread, so they renamed it Bethlehem.
That's good.
They didn't like the biblical true name of the Messiah, Yeshua, so they renamed him Jesus. So this Rosh Hashanah is really biblically the Feast of Trumpets. And the Feast of Trumpets is all about a message of review your ways. Get ready. Things are about to change. So if we come now to the biblical new year, Nisan, in the spring, you remember that the first time that it was celebrated in a long time was when Israel was coming out from bondage from Egypt. It was not only a new year, it was a new life. Everything was brand new. They were finally free from the problems that had plagued them and held them captive for over 400 years. And that's what we want for you as you're watching these videos in this month. That you would have a springtime, a new year in your life. And that as the earth blossoms and blooms and produces beautiful things, that you'll find that happening inside your heart during this season as well.
I think it's important to understand that in that era that Israel was coming out of Egypt, it was the shifting of an age. Now, one of the things that we understand about an age is you can have a child that is, say, 1 year of age or 5 years of age, and then you can have grandparents who are 80 years of age. And so an age can also be represented by a number of years put together that are consecutive and represent an entire era or an entire lifetime or an entire season. And so what we understand is that Israel was coming out of one age. One age was ending, and another age, the next age, was beginning. And when you understand the science piece of that, an age, looking at it scripture-wise, is represented by about 2,000 to 2,100 years. And so Israel has been forming, they've been growing together as a nation, and now they've been in Egypt these prophesied 400 plus years. And as they begin to come out of that season, that era, that age, there is a shift that is taking place. And it's happening on Nisan 1, or biblically, Adonai said, the first month, the beginning. And so we see them ending one era, beginning a new.
One of the things I love about the new year, the biblical new year, is that it's marked by a ceremony. It's almost like out with the bad, in with the good, or out with the old and in with the new. However that is in your life, however you mark this season that we're in right now, that's our prayer for you, that it is beginning a brand new era in your life of good things to come, things that you maybe have waited for, longed for, that they will begin to manifest in your life.
I think the saying goes, how you end something is how you begin something. So in your life, ending something is so important, to end it right, to end it on a good note, to end it with peace, to end it on a good frequency.
Thanksgiving.
That's it. So that when you begin something new, the next season begins with that kind of an energy pushing it forward rather than something that is not so good or negative.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to say this to you. Happy New Year. May all your dreams come true this year. When we close out our Passover celebration, we say this saying, L'Shana Haba Be'Yerushalayim. And that saying is this: may we celebrate this time with you next year in Jerusalem. Well, hope you're enjoying these videos. We look forward to seeing you next week. But for now, we are the Hebrew Sisters.